Hi guys, Melissa here, and the theme for this week is Common Threads. So the first book that we're going to read is The Queen's Hat, written by Steve Anthony, followed by Dona Floor by Pat Mora, and then to finish it off, we'll do another rhyme out of our Real Mother Goose book. Okay. The Queen was on her way to visit someone very special when the wind went swish. The wind took the Queen's favorite hat right off her head. It soared high above the Queen. It whooshed high above the Queen's men. The wind was so strong that it swept the Queen's hat all the way to Trafalgar Square and all through London Zoo and all along the London Underground and all around the London Eye and all across Tower Bridge and all over Big Ben. Where it sailed up further into the sky, swoosh, until at last the Queen and all the Queen's men floated gently down to Kensington Palace, along with the Queen's hat. The end. Okay. This one is Dona Floor. Every winter morning, when the sun opened one eye, Dona Floor grabbed a handful of snow from the top of a nearby mountain. Brrr, she said, rubbing the snow on top of her face to wake up. Long, long ago, when Flora was a baby, her mother sang to her in a voice sweet as river music. When Flora's mother sang to her corn plants, they grew as tall as trees. And when she sang to her baby, her sweet flower, well, Flora grew and grew too. When Flora finally stopped growing, she built her own house, una casa big, as a mountain and open as a canyon. She scooped a handful of dirt and made herself a valley for mixing clay, straw, and water. She added some estrellas. The stars made the adobe shine when she worked. Flora sang, and birds came and built nests in her hair. Flora wanted everyone to feel at home in her house. Mi casa es su casa, she said to the people, animals, and plants. So they knew they were always welcome. Everyone called her Dona Floor because they respected her. No one needed an alarm clock in Dona Floor's pueblo. When her hands, white as plates, started pat-pat-patting tortillas, everyone in the village woke up. So her neighbors would have plenty to eat, she stacked the tortillas on the huge rock table in front of her house. Flora's tortillas were the biggest, bestest tortillas in the whole wide world. People used the extra ones as roofs. The houses smelled corn good when the sun was hot. In the summer, the children floated around the pond on tortilla rafts. One warm spring day, while a family of lizards swept her house, Dona Floor brought out her stacks of fresh tortillas. Nobody came. Thought Flora. She started knocking on doors and calling to her neighbors. ¿Qué pasa? What's the matter? She asked, bending down to peer into their small doors to see where they were hiding. El Puma! They whispered. The children have heard a huge mountain lion circling the village. Listen! Flor listened, and sure enough, she heard a terrible roar. Dona Floor and her animal friends went out looking for the huge gato, but they couldn't find it. That night, she carried her tired friends, the coyotes and rabbits, back home. But just as she started to tuck them in and read them a goodnight story, they all heard it. Roar! Where is that darn cat? Asked Flor. But the scared animals were shaking and shivering under their sheets. She gave each a giant kiss. Smack! The sound echoed and woke the grumpy wind, who stormed up and down the hills a grumbling and a growling. That night, the wind got so angry that he blew the trees and houses first to the left and then to the right. First to the left and then to the right, and then again to the left and to the right. Now, Dona Floor liked her sleep, so she wasn't smiling when she heard the wind spinning round and round the village. Together, the wind and the giant cat roared all night, and nobody got much sleep. As the sun rose, Flor's neighbors, shaking at the commotion, peered out of their windows. Tired-looking Flor was giving that wind a big hug to quiet him down. Then she started her morning chores. Dona Floor had work to do, but first she looked around the village. Where were her neighbors? Then she heard it. Roar! Roar! Flor stomped off to find the puma that was bothering her amigos. She was tired by afternoon. Dona Floor still hadn't found that cat, so she sat outside the library for a rest. She was too big to fit inside, so she just reached in the window for books. You see, Flor was probably the fastest reader ever. Why, she could read the whole encyclopedia in 5 minutes. She liked to sit in the shade and read stories and poems, nice and slow to the children, and animals that climbed all over her soft body. Today, she called, and finally the children came, but they were scared. What can I do to cheer my friends up? She wondered. Flor, as she saw their frightened faces, she thought and thought. Now, Flor knew that her village needed un rio, a river. So to make her neighbors happy, Dona Floor scratched a new riverbed with her thumb. When the water trickled down the stones for the first time, Flor called out, "Just listen to that! Isn't that the prettiest sound you've ever heard?" She smiled, and her smile was about as big as her tortillas. But today, her neighbors could barely smile back. They were too worried about the mountain lion, and sure enough, suddenly there was a terrible roar, roar! That's it, thought Dona Floor, and she stomped off to look for the giant puma, but she still couldn't find him. So she went home to think and work in her garden. It was like a small forest on the edge of the pueblo, a tangle of poppies, morning glories, roses, luscious tomatoes, and chiles. Whatever she planted grew so fast you could hear the roots spreading at night. Her neighbors used the sunflowers as bright yellow umbrellas. She gave the school band her hollyhocks to use as trumpets. The music smelled like spring. My plants grow that big because I sing to them like my mother did, Dona Floor told the children when they came 3 at a time to carry home an ear of corn. But today, the children ran home when they heard, "Roar!" The sound rattled all of the plates in the pueblo. Flor's neighbors' teeth started rattling too. Where is that big monster gato? Dona Floor wondered. The smell of roses helped Flor think, so she went inside and took a long, hot bubble bath. Everyone knew Dona Floor was thinking when bubbles that smelled like roses began to rise from her chimney. I know, thought Flor. I'll go to my animal friends for help. She stomped off again, and she started asking, because remember, she spoke every language, even Rattler. Go quietly to the tallest mesa, said the deer. Vaya silenciosamente a la mesa más alta, hissed the snake. Go quietly to the tallest mesa, whispered the rabbits. Knowing that the animals are mighty smart, Dona Floor followed their advice. She walked very, very softly up to the tallest mesa. She looked around carefully for the giant cat. Then right near her, she heard, "Roar! Roar!" Flora jumped so high, she bumped into the sun and gave him a black eye. Flora looked around. All she saw was the back of a cute little puma. She watched him, very quietly. Dona Floor began to tiptoe toward the puma when all of a sudden he roared into a long, hollow log. The sound became a huge roar that echoed down into the sky. Now, the little puma thought the loud noise was so funny that he rolled on his back and started laughing and laughing until he saw big Dona Floor. "Aha!" thought Flor. "Are you the chico who's causing all the trouble?" she asked. The little puma tried to look very fierce. His eyes sizzled with angry sparks. He opened his mouth wide, and his teeth glinted. He roared his meanest roar. "Roar!" he growled. But without the log, the growl wasn't really very fierce. Dona Floor just smiled at that brave cat and said, "Why, you're just a kitten to me, Pumito." And she bent down and scratched the puma behind the ears. And she whispered to him in cat talk until the cat began to purr and purr. Pumito began to lick Flor's face with his wet tongue. Suddenly, Flor heard a new voice. "Dona Floor, ¿dónde está?" "Where are you?" called her worried neighbors. Even though they were frightened, they had all come holding hands, looking for her. "Meet my new amigo," said Dona Floor, smiling at her thoughtful neighbors. That evening, Flor plucked a star the way she always did, and plunked it on the tallest tree so her friends in the pueblo could find their way home. She plucked una estrella to put above her door too. Even the stars could hear Dona Floor humming. Flor liked a fresh bed, so she reached up and filled her arms with clouds smelling of flowery breezes. She shaped the clouds into a soft, deep bed and into the hills of puffy pillows. Said Flor as she snuggled in the clouds. "Tonight, I am very tired after my adventure with the giant cat. Right, Pumito?" chuckled Dona Floor. All the animals snuggled down with her, and Pumito stretched out over her big toes. And there he is. The end. Okay, so our rhyme for today is, it's called The Little Bird, and it goes like this. Once I saw a little bird come hop, hop, hop. So I cried, "Little bird, won't you stop, stop, stop?" And was going to the window to say, "How do you do?" But he shook his little tail, and far away he flew. Thanks, guys.